Hi, I'm Elodie Harper, and I'm the author of Boudicca's Daughter, which is a book about the daughter of the legendary rebel queen Boudicca and her adventures on the rebellion against Rome and then the aftermath in Italy. How would I describe my book in three words? I think that would have to be passion, rage, and deception. Was there any part of my research that really surprised me? Yes, there was. I did not realise that Boudicca was not the only warrior queen in Britain at this time. There was also Cartimandua, the queen of the Brigantes tribe in the north, and the Roman historian Tacitus tells us that the Britons did not distinguish between the sexes when choosing commanders, which means that women of this period in Britain had a very different kind of power and authority structure to ancient Rome, where women had much more control and authority. What is the most essential component of a great historical adventure? Well, I would say the same as any great adventure, but the historical part, I think, is that the research and the writing should also take you on an adventure into the past. So experiencing the sights, sounds, smells, and danger of the past is part of what makes the story compelling. Which character from Boudicca's Daughter do I relate to the most and why? So, Solina, the eldest daughter of Boudicca, is the main protagonist of the novel, but I actually really related to her younger sister, Belenia, who is maybe because I'm also the younger daughter in a family. But yeah, she's very different from her sister, and if it had been a book from her point of view, it would have been a very different book. Selena is someone with enormous strength, and Belenia perhaps is a slightly less certain character. She questions things more. She has a different sort of insight. We never see from her point of view, but when I was writing her, I was very aware that there was a whole other world going on in Belenia's consciousness. What's harder to write, epic battle scenes or intimate moments? Well, for me, it's definitely the epic battle scenes. I'm just not a nerd on battle tactics and formation and getting like all down and dirty with like itsy bitsy kind of what they wore and swords and sandals and all of that. But what I enjoyed and what I tried to convey was like the psychological tension and intensity and the sweep of battle. So I focused very much rather than kind of battle tactics and a blow by blow account of how particular battles were won or lost by the Romans and the Iceni on the sack of towns. So Boudicca sacked London, Colchester, and St Albans, and I wanted to give a kind of sense of the confusion and drama of what it might mean to sack a city. If I found myself stranded in the ancient British marshlands, the book I'd want with me is, well, one that hasn't survived if it was ever written. So all our historical records from this time were written by the Romans. And if I was in ancient Britain, I would like to have a book written by the ancient Britons themselves. We don't know if they actually had writing, but we do know that the Druids, who were like their highest class of citizen, they were like priests, lawmakers, that they were the kind of holders of all the knowledge in that society. So I would want either the knowledge, written or unwritten, of a druid if I was stranded there. If Boudicca's Daughter were adapted into a film, who would I cast as Selina? There's the fantasy version of complete fantasy, if it could be an actress from any time and place. I would say the young Sigourney Weaver, as she appears in Alien, or possibly a bit even younger because Selina's only around in her very early 20s in the book. But if it was somebody contemporary, I would say Sophie Turner, who played Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones. Where is my favorite place to write? My favorite place to write is a library. And that is absolutely true. It's not just because amazing librarians have picked the shortlist for this wonderful prize. I love being in the peace and quiet of a library. You have the companionship of other people writing or studying or reading there. You're surrounded by books. It's just the perfect place to be. If I could time travel to ancient Rome for just one day, the first thing I would do is, I mean, where could I possibly start with that? I think I'd just love to wander the streets. I'm hoping I would be kind of invisible for this and not arrested. So I would just go wandering into people's houses, into shops, into the baths, very much in journalist mode, taking as many notes as I possibly could. Um, yeah, I mean, it'd be amazing. What one thing would I like readers to take away from Boudicca's daughter? So I think this book was not written with particular morals or a neat moral in mind at all. It's very much a book that encourages people to make up their own mind about what they think of the characters' actions, which are quite polarizing and quite challenging in many respects. So something that was said to me when I was a journalist is that we're only as good as the choices that we're faced with. And I think I would want people to think of Solina, to truly think of her, what it might mean to survive something like Boudicca's rebellion, what choices they would face, and what choices they would honestly make in those circumstances.